Hello, Alan. Here's your message for today. The message that is in your highest and best interest. Silence. 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 Silence is challenging for most of the people in your physical time-space reality, third-dimensional reality. This has been true for a very long time. There are, of course, exceptions, those who are deeply practiced in meditation are the primary exceptions, meditation and perhaps prayer. Just kind of depends on how they approach meditation and prayer. There are different techniques, some of which are more silencing than others. But silence is the background. It's the background energy to everything in your physical time-space reality. There is always silence. There cannot be non-silence without silence. Silence comes first. Silence is nothing. Pure silence is nothing. Pure silence is what we call all that is. Some people call God. Pure silence is what all that is was before there was something else. So it's the pure silence that came first. In fact, pure silence is almost impossible to know from a dualistic mental thinking approach to knowing. Pure silence is what exists between each of the words that we are speaking at this point in time. Pure silence is what exists between each of the things that you see in your reality as your eyes move from one object to another. In between the two things that are seen is pure silence. This is also true for what you hear, for what you touch, and for what you think. So in between every thought is pure silence. But the silence is not known. The silence cannot be seen because as soon as you look for it, it disappears. As soon as you look for a thought in between thoughts, you are creating a new thought. And the silence is still there. It's pushed in between the old thought and the new thought. As soon as you look for the silence in between the objects that you see another object. And the pure silence is pushed again in between. Pure silence is in some ways like everything that's behind your head. You cannot see it. Except with a mirror, there are ways, there are tricks you can use to try to see what's behind you. But in general, without those tricks, what's behind you is blank. That's kind of what the pure silence is like. The pure silence can also be maybe compared to a movie screen in a cinema complex. The pure silence is the screen. Everything that you are there to see, everything that you're there to experience happens on the screen, but it is not the screen. This is the way you experience your physical reality. Everything happens on the pure silence, but it is not the pure silence. So silence is a tricky concept to understand from a rational thinking perspective and to talk about even. Because the pure silence, or silence in general, is an experience. It is something that people occasionally experience on their own. Often when they suddenly realize that, wow, it's silent, it's so silent, they immediately start to try to fill that silence with something. Either a description, maybe a photograph, maybe a poem, but it's still trying to fill that silence. Or it could also be an emotion, perhaps. But understand that all of these things, emotions, pictures, poems, words, are built on top of the silence. They are not the silence. They point to the silence. The silence can only be experienced. It can be pointed to, yes, but the only way it can be known is through experience. And of course, that is what meditation is mostly about. We can't say that all forms of meditation are intended to experience silence, but many of them are. Most of the meditations that you practice, have practiced over the years, have been aimed towards that goal of experiencing pure silence. And the reason that you want to experience this silence is because this silence is, as we said at the beginning, this silence is all that is. This silence is what many people call God. Silence. All that is, everything that is silence. The root of everything. And you can experience that through meditation practices of different kinds. And the reason people want to experience that is because, well, that is who they are. In essence, everyone is all that is, because you cannot be separate from all that is. So the closer you come to experiencing all that is, the closer you come to experiencing who you really are. Now, you may not go all the way to the pure silence because, in fact, it is really impossible to maintain a separate consciousness when you are 100% identified with all that is. But you can come close. You can come very close. And really, it doesn't matter how close you get. Every time you move closer to all that is, you are moving closer to your essence, to who you are, to knowing who you are, to experiencing who you really are. And every time you come closer to all that is, you come closer to experiencing your higher self, as it is sometimes called, to your soul, to your spiritual self, to the self that was part of you before you were born in this reality and will continue with you after this reality, to the multiplicity of selves that you are. As you move closer to your true self, you understand that you are a multiplicity of selves, of different selves, and you can know these many selves that you use to define your identity. It can be quite complicated, especially as you move to higher levels of dimensions, higher levels of density, where you can experience more and more of your personal diversity. So silence. Silence is a goal. Silence is something that the more you can become aware of the silence in your everyday life, in your every moment, the more you can appreciate and find space for that silence, the more you will be closer to your true essence. And, of course, closer to us, your energy group, who, as we've told you before, you are an integral part of. You are a very important and valuable part of our group. You are a part of our group that's having this human time-space third-dimensional experience. And as with all the members of our group, we deeply appreciate that because we learn so much from our dimension, which helps us to move closer to all that is, just as you move closer to us and closer to all that is through this human experience. So that is our message for today. It's to look for the silence, appreciate the silence, learn to love the silence. We love you. We love your third-dimensional physical reality and all that you are doing in that reality to contribute to the expansion of consciousness for the people in your reality as well as for those of us who are connected to you in multi-dimensional ways. Thank you. Namaste.